This is a story for anyone who's ever felt like a stranger in their own skin, for those torn between the tame and the wild, the polite smile and the primal scream. This isn't just Harry Haller's story, it's yours. If you've ever asked, why don't I fit? Is there something wrong with me? Or worse, is there something more? Welcome to Steppenwolf. Not for everybody, but maybe, just maybe, for you. Let's go. The Man Who Walked in Shadows. Modern audiobook script. Narration style. He was just a tenant. Harry Haller. Lived alone. Rented the top floor of a quiet house. Didn't make noise. Paid on time. Nice enough. Polite. Bookish. But there was something else. A shadow in his eyes. Like he saw through things the rest of us were still trying to understand. By all appearances, he was harmless, a scholar, a gentleman. But the truth? He was living with a wolf. "I am a wolf of the steppes," he once wrote, "a beast astray in the world of men." This wasn't poetry. It was confession. Harry wasn't like them, the bourgeois. They laughed too loud, danced too easily, believed in newspapers and proper diets and careers. He drifted past them like a ghost, holding a book in one hand and his suffering in the other. He longed for something deeper. He was tired of being tame, but also terrified of becoming wild. So he walked, not on paths, but between them. And yet, something was stirring. Something just outside the edge of routine. A message, a stranger, a door that wasn't there yesterday. He was about to step out of his well-worn loneliness and into something far stranger. But first, he had to admit, he didn't belong anywhere. Between the books and the abyss. Harry Haller lived by books. They were his comfort, his fortress, and sometimes his cell. He read philosophy and poetry like other people drank wine, slowly, obsessively, trying to forget the dullness of reality. But reality always crept back in. The clatter of life outside. The bright, bustling, boring world he could never quite join. By day, he wandered libraries and side streets, a man out of time. By night, he paced his room, swallowed by thoughts that wouldn't stop circling. Sometimes he imagined dying, not in some dramatic way, no crowd, no scene, just slipping quietly from the world like a sigh. Not because he hated life, but because it felt like he had no place in it. He watched people with a strange mixture of contempt and envy. How easy it seemed for them to laugh at dull jokes, to drink coffee and flirt, to wake up and just believe in things. Harry? He believed in nothing. Not anymore. He wanted to be free of it all. The noise, the falseness, even of himself. And then, one cold afternoon, as he passed a wall he'd passed 1,000 times before, he saw it. A sign. Just 3 words. Magic Theater, entrance not for everybody. He blinked. It was gone, like a mirage, or a warning. But something had been planted, a question he couldn't shake. And that's when the pamphlet appeared. The Tract for Madmen. It looked like nothing. Just a folded scrap of paper. No envelope, no sender. Left at a tavern by someone who seemed to vanish before Harry could follow. But when he opened it, it was as if someone had written his life down without asking. Treatise on the Steppenwolf. That was the title, and it began like this. There are people who possess 2 souls, 2 natures, the human and the wolf. Harry's hands trembled. It wasn't metaphor. It was him, down to the marrow. The pamphlet described a person split between polished manners and primal urges, someone who could mimic the world but never join it, who longed for wildness and peace and got neither. It warned of the danger of thinking you're only 2 things. That's the real trap, it said. Because no one is just one man and one beast. We are multitudes. In truth, there are not 2 beings inside us. There are thousands. That line hit Harry like a slap. All his life he'd made his suffering neat, drawn lines between the wolf and the gentleman. But this tract laughed at that, told him, "You're more complicated than you dare admit." It said, "You must learn to live with your inner chaos, to dance with it, to laugh at it." Laugh. Harry hadn't done that in years. And then the final line, "Entrance to the magic theater. Not for everybody, for madmen only." And in that moment, Harry didn't feel so alone. He didn't feel safe either, but the door had cracked open. The girl called Hermione. Harry met her in a bar. He wasn't supposed to be there. Too smoky, too loud, too alive for a man like him. But something had cracked open since the pamphlet, and now he was here, sitting alone, drink in hand, pretending not to watch the world dance around him. That's when she walked up. She was young, sharp-eyed, not afraid. She looked at him like she knew exactly what he was. Not the version he tried to show, but the fractured, feral, flickering self underneath. She said her name was Hermine, like Hermann, she explained, but with an E, like a mirror. "You look like you're about to die," she said, without flinching, "but I could teach you to dance instead." And just like that, Harry's world shifted. She wasn't like the others. She didn't ask him to be polite or cheerful or reasonable. She didn't try to fix him. She studied him. "I'll be your friend," she said, "but only if you promise to obey me." Harry laughed. First time in months. Hermione became a strange kind of guide, not a lover, not yet, but something more dangerous. She taught him how to move through the world again, how to let go of shame, how to taste pleasure without apology. She said, "I'm not here to heal you. I'm here to help you live before you die." And Harry, who'd once been content to fade into shadows, started to follow her into the light. But it was a different kind of light, one that burned a little, and woke things up inside him he'd long thought dead. Because to be free, he'll have to let the old self go. Lessons in Dancing and Death. Harry Haller, the man who quoted Goethe at dinner parties, was now learning to foxtrot. Badly. His teacher? Hermione. Ruthless, precise, patient in the way a cat is patient with a wounded bird. "Loosen up," she said. "You're not here to impress anyone. You're here to feel." He stumbled. He sulked. He muttered things like, "I'm too old for this." Hermione just smiled. "Then die, Harry, and start over." It wasn't about the dancing, not really. It was about killing the version of himself that had calcified, the one that clung to seriousness like a life raft, the one that called pleasure pointless and fun frivolous. Hermione saw it all, and she pressed her heel right into the center of his pride. She told him stories, taught him how to flirt, made him listen to jazz, real jazz, and not analyze it. "You don't need to understand it," she said. "You need to let it ruin you a little." And Harry, stubborn, brilliant, broken Harry, began to soften, just a little. But there was always an undercurrent, a whisper beneath the laughter, a shadow behind the music. "You know I'm going to die," Hermione said one night, almost casually, "and you're going to kill me." Harry blinked, laughed nervously, but she didn't. She just smiled, slow and dangerous. "Not today," she said, "but one day, when the lesson ends." The door reappears, the magic theater, and this time, it's open. Step inside, and nothing you believe about identity or reality will stay standing. The Theater of the Self. It wasn't a place on any map. No address, no ticket booth, no line. Just a door, suddenly there, like it had been waiting for him all along. Magic theater, not for everybody. It didn't glow, it didn't hum. It simply was. And when Harry stepped through, everything he thought was real began to shift. Inside, the world was layered, like dreams stacked on top of each other. Rooms folded into hallways, folded into mirrors. Signs flickered with messages only he could read. All girls are yours. Learn to laugh. Live out your crimes. Each door led to a version of himself he had never dared to meet. In one room, he saw himself as a child again, wide-eyed, terrified, begging for approval. In another, he was a soldier, violent and grinning, firing wildly into the void. He stepped through rooms of lust, cruelty, tenderness, absurdity. He saw himself fail. He saw himself fly. He saw himself shatter. The theater didn't offer answers. It offered options. Fragments of soul, laid out like costume changes. "You are not just man or wolf," a voice whispered. "You are theater. And you are audience. And you are joke." That's when he saw her. Hermann, in a room of mirrors, not saying a word, just waiting. And nothing will be serious again. Mirrors, masks, and multiples. In the magic theater, mirrors don't reflect, they reveal. And what Harry saw was everything. 1,000 versions of himself, walking past each other. Some were dignified, some depraved, some laughed, some wept. One sat calmly with a razor in his hand. Each mask was him, and yet none of them were him. The walls of identity began to crack. He wasn't Harry Holler. He wasn't the Steppenwolf. He was fragments, roles, masks worn for survival. The theater whispered, "Your suffering was never noble, just a costume worn too long." And that hurt, because Harry had taken such pride in his pain. Then came the montage. Rapid-fire scenes flashing like dream slides. He was a dictator, a child, a laughing clown, a terrified man clinging to routine, a lover, a murderer, a saint. And somewhere between it all, he started to get it. That the self is not a thing, it's a process, a theater. You can't cling to one mask and call it truth, not without becoming a caricature. To be whole, the theater told him, you must be willing to be many. And as his mind spun, spiraled, fractured, he heard it. Laughter. Real, raucous, almost rude laughter. And there stood a man in a white suit, playing a saxophone and smiling like he knew all the secrets. Pablo. Pablo steps in with a soundtrack and a smirk. He doesn't explain, he vibes. But Harry's about to learn that laughter is a weapon, and maybe a way out. The laugh of Pablo. Pablo didn't explain the magic theater. He didn't need to. He just was it. The embodiment of fluid identity, of effortless chaos, of play. He handed Harry a cigarette, tilted his head, grinned. "Don't think so much," he said. "Thinkers always miss the joke." Pablo didn't walk. He glided. He didn't talk. He riffed, like jazz. He played the saxophone in a room where time melted and led Harry through scenes like a game show host of the unconscious. In one room, Harry danced with death. In another, he fell in love with a mannequin who turned into his mother. In another still, he watched his life on stage, badly acted, overly serious, and completely hilarious. Pablo laughed. "This is how the gods see you," he said. "Tiny, tragic, trying too hard." And Harry laughed too. For the first time, the weight started to lift. Maybe he didn't need to understand everything. Maybe he didn't need to be a tortured soul or a savage wolf. Maybe he could just be. Laughter, Pablo said, is how we forgive ourselves for being human. But beneath all that jazz and smoke and winked insight, something darker was rising. A test, a moment, a scene he couldn't laugh his way out of. It's not about how to dance, it's about how to die, and what you're willing to kill to be truly free. The final game. And there she was, Hermine, waiting, in a room with no walls, just mirrors and silence. She looked at Harry like she always had, not with pity, not with judgment, but with clarity. "You've come far," she said, "but we're not done." There was a knife on the table, no ceremony, no riddle, just the blade, and a feeling that this was the end of something. "Do you remember what I said?" Hermine asked. "That you would kill me?" Harry froze. He didn't want to. He didn't understand. But deep down, some part of him did. Hermine had been the one to break him open, to make him feel, to guide him toward life. But she couldn't come with him through the last door. She was a symbol, a soul fragment, a spark, and sparks burn out once the fire takes hold. He wept. He kissed her, held her, and then he did it. He killed her. Not in rage, not in hatred, but in surrender, to change, to wholeness, to the terrible freedom of becoming something new. And when he looked up, Pablo was there, laughing softly, not cruelly, just knowingly. "That's the end of your tragedy," he said. "Now, if you want, you can learn to laugh." Harry walks out of the magic theater, not fixed, not certain, but changed, and somewhere in the distance, laughter waits. Not for everybody. Harry Haller walked out of the magic theater, not reborn, not redeemed, but real. No more illusions of being only man or only wolf. No more clinging to pain as identity. No more waiting to be saved. He had killed the lie, laughed at the absurdity, and stood, finally, as a beginner. Outside, the world hadn't changed. The same newspapers, the same smiles, the same dull laughter. But he had. He saw through it now, not with disdain, but with understanding. That life is theater. That roles change. That we're all acting, fumbling, improvising our way through this strange, beautiful mess. "I am not one thing," he whispered. "I am multitudes, and I can learn, even to laugh." The pamphlet had warned him from the start, not for everybody. And now he understood why. Because becoming whole, truly whole, requires dying to the self you clung to, requires letting go of tragedy like a favorite coat that no longer fits, requires choosing laughter over drama, light over torment, freedom over form. Harry didn't become someone new. He became someone true. And as he walked forward, no longer afraid of madness, no longer at war with his wildness, he laughed, soft at first, then louder, like music, like jazz, like life. Harry Haller walked through the Magic Theater and came out changed. Not polished, not perfected, but cracked open. He faced the masks. He faced the wolf. He even faced himself. And somewhere in that madness, he found laughter. Not the laughter of mockery, but of freedom, of finally letting go. But the story doesn't quite end here. Not for someone like Harry, not in a world like this. There are still shadows left to explore, still mirrors that haven't shattered, still questions whispering through the smoke. What comes after you learn to laugh? What happens when the theater calls you back? We'll see you again. Part 2 is coming, and it's not for everybody, but maybe it's for you.